A debate has made its way to headlines all across the country. We'll take an in-depth look at immunizations and whether it's the right decision to take the shot.
There's been no scientific evidence that vaccines cause autism, but it's also hard to prove that it doesn't. And so I think there's a lingering, in people who are choosing not to, a lingering doubt.
This and more on this edition of Equal Time. The decision of immunization starts with families. Dustin Dorsey takes us along with a Bay Area family to get a child immunized.
This is Christopher. He is 8 months old. Today, his parents Kayleigh Cosimano and Joey Dale are on their way to get him vaccinated at the Indian Health Center in San Jose.
Okay.
Today in America, there is concern over vaccinations, especially in young babies. This concern won't stop this young family from making sure their child is safe. When Cosimano was a child, she was vaccinated. She plans to follow in a similar path of her parents when it comes to her baby.
My parents believe that it was important to vaccinate me because it's protecting me from life-threatening diseases.
Get his pneumonia shot and his hepatitis B shot. All right, he's too old to get any more rotavirus, so that's all right.
All right.
Yeah.
Christopher is receiving 4 different vaccines to protect him from several different diseases. While he is showing little pain from the shots, his mother knows it is what's best for him.
It's only painful for a few seconds. He cried for 10 seconds and then he was over it.
But the hurt is only short term.
Okay. I just feel like it's worth it because he's protected and he'll be around longer.
This seems like a straightforward process. You go to the doctors and you get your shots to stay healthy. However, this has become a national debate that doesn't appear to have a surefire right answer. Many parents have strong worries about what Christopher's parents are doing to him. So why the worry?
I think that a lot of people think that vaccinations cause autism, and I think that's a misinformed belief.
While these parents say this is the right choice, their feeling is not mutual across the country and the world. According to UNICEF last year, well over 20 million children under a year old, like Christopher, were not vaccinated. While these parents may not be doing exactly what everyone else is doing, they say they believe they are doing the right thing for their child and others.
I've done my research on it as well, so it's not just the values I was taught. So I don't want anything to happen to my child or something that I've decided to happen to somebody else.
When we return, we'll broaden our view on this debate and take it to the next generation of parents. Welcome back. So why do people make the decisions they do about immunizations? Dustin Dorsey dives into that debate with future mothers and fathers.
When asking the question whether it's smart to vaccinate your children, you might start with the future generation of parents. You can find this generation on a college campus. Students are at the point of their lives in which they will soon have to be educated enough to make decisions of their own. Many will follow the path of their parents. Some may stray off the path. So will these future mothers and fathers have their families vaccinated?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would much rather, I mean, there are risks associated with vaccines, but the risks of getting a vaccine versus the risks of not getting vaccines are just unparalleled.
Honestly, I'm not sure yet because I have a lot of questions about vaccines myself. I haven't gotten around to it, but I'd like to learn more about them, and see whether they really are required.
Like Manpreet, many people aren't sure whether vaccinations can harm children due to the information that they hear in conversation or see in social media. A widely distributed study linking vaccinations to autism has since been discredited, and its author, Dr. Andrew Wakefield, has lost his license.
As for the link to autism, there is none. The guy who did that study, Andrew Wakefield, he did a study in 1998 basically saying that there was a link between vaccines and autism, and if you get your children vaccinated, you're putting them at risk for autism, which is completely untrue.
Jacqueline Adams' brother, Ryan, lives with autism, but she says that she does not believe he developed the condition from a vaccine. However, others are not convinced. One of the chief concerns that anti-vaccination advocates have is that the high mercury levels in the vaccinations cause autism. According to Dr. Lauren Hidalgo, this is not proven and the vaccinations are necessary.
If you believe in the greater good of society, it's kind of a public obligation, I think, to also get your vaccinations.
Dr. Hidalgo is a physician at San Jose State University. She understands the importance of immunizations as well as the hesitation of others against them.
I think for the most part, the people that I've met or have read about tend to be worried about unknown risks.
Risks such as autism from vaccinations, along with the endorsements from celebrities, have given this debate life. In the vaccination conversation, there will be two sides to the story, believing they are right and sticking to their guns. It all comes down to considering these risks and deciding how big of a risk it is for you.
Still to come, we'll take our discussion to a panel of experts to help shed some light on the concerns over vaccines and answer some very tough questions. Stay with us. Of Equal Time from our brand new HD television studio in the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at San Jose State. Today we're talking about something timely, vaccinations, the pros and the cons. Let's meet our guests.
I'm Lauren Hidalgo, and I'm one of the physicians at the Student Health Center here at San Jose State, as well as the co-medical chief of staff.
I'm Angela Campbell, and I'm a registered nurse. I currently work in the field of genetics.
I'm Kayleigh Cosimano. I am a stay-at-home mother to an 8-month-old.
And my name is Kelli Dorsey, and I'm a former first grade teacher.
And I'm Dustin Dorsey, and I am the student correspondent on this story.
I want to thank you all for being here today. You know, I think a lot of people out there watching, we thought the vaccination issue was long since decided in this country, and yet now we're finding out in the news that there are many parts of the country, many parts of California, many parts of our area that have uncertainties and questions. Why is that? Doctor, why is that?
That's because we haven't really seen many of these diseases that we've been trying to prevent, because there has been so much vaccination that measles, polio, a lot of different things have never been seen by people who are currently parents. And there is people who can have conscientious objections to vaccinations, which has grown quite large, and places like Marin County especially have a very high unvaccination rate. And so I think perhaps people have gotten a bit complacent about vaccinations because of not seeing these diseases.
Very good. I was listening to Bay Area radio, and I was hearing about a story of a parent who did not want to have his son vaccinated, but felt it was the responsibility of the school to protect his son. And I was wondering, how did that connection come about? As a former teacher, I suspect that seems a little challenging.
That is an interesting comment. For example, when the child is enrolled into the school and registered, the parent gets to choose whether or not to vaccinate their child. It's due to personal or religious beliefs, and that's a misnomer to many parents and people out there. They think it's a requirement to have your child vaccinated before school starts, when in fact it's a choice by the parent. And the school I was teaching at formerly, 4% of the population is not vaccinated. 4% of that school. And it's now public knowledge, and parents can go on and see, how many children at their school is not vaccinated. So I'm surprised to hear it's the school's responsibility when it's their choice when registering their child.
That makes sense. I know you and I were talking when we were younger. I was younger a lot longer ago than you, that it was not even a thought. You just did it because that's what you're supposed to do. Is that the case when you were growing up?
Absolutely. I mean, that just came second nature, when you were a little kid and you just knew you got your shots. Continuous to this day, I keep up with my shots and everything like that. It felt to me that's what you were to do to keep not only yourself healthy, but to keep everyone healthy around you, because you don't want to get anybody else sick as well.
Now that's what we've been taught, that's what we learned, but parents sometimes don't always agree. Am I correct about that?
That's very true. I mean, I keep my child vaccinated because not only I want to keep him safe, but I want to keep everybody else safe. So, I mean, that's what I was taught. So I'm going to teach him that. So that's just my thinking.
But when you hear reports of people saying, well, wait a minute, you're imposing your values on my child, how does that make you feel? Is that fair? I mean, does it seem right that should happen to a parent?
No, I mean, it's my value on my child. You can have your opinion to your child and your teaching to your child, but I can vaccinate my child if I want to. That's your opinion. But go ahead.
I think that's where it gets interesting too, is you're saying my values and my child. This has become a debate, not only just coffee talk around in the morning in the office, but it's gone to social media and so many different avenues and so many different ways that people are talking about this. And that's where I think it's really gained a lot of steam, is with just how today is and everything like that, and with technology the way it is, it's grown so much more than maybe before I was born and things like that, where it wasn't as easy to access this information and talk about it in different forums like that.
Very good. And as a nurse, I suspect you're probably in the center of this controversy all the time.
I am, and I have to say that this controversy stems back from 1998 when Andrew Wakefield, a physician, published reports and data and findings and research that indicated that there was a link of vaccines to autism. And so many parents had access to those reports, and given now social media very readily at our hands to be able to share that information, that physician those reports were founded to be, he actually admitted to lying and falsifying the document. Exactly. And despite those findings that they were inaccurate, he falsified them. He was actually stripped of his license. He can no longer practice medicine. That information is still there, and we're dealing with people's children, and parents don't want to make the wrong decision because it's their children's lives that they're dealing with, and they don't want to be responsible for possibly being responsible for maybe giving their child autism. However, there have not been any studies that have shown any links from vaccinations to autism, and there have been multiple studies that have shown that there is actually not a link. There's no sufficient evidence of vaccinations causing autism. Furthermore, I think parents are also very frightened by the scary ingredients that are passed along in the brochures. We just read the brochure and see formaldehyde, mercury, things like that, and we're frightened by those ingredients. But as lay people, we don't actually understand what goes into the making of vaccinations, and we don't understand the chemistry and the concentrations of how much formaldehyde or what it's used for. And then people don't actually understand that we breathe formaldehyde, we eat formaldehyde, we drink formaldehyde, and your body actually needs formaldehyde, as one example, to actually function normally and to have homeostasis. So I think that people just take a scary thing formaldehyde and they equate it to death, and they figure, I don't want my kid to have that.
And Dustin, we have to be honest, journalists are kind of fueling this controversy because we keep putting these stories out all over the country. We see people protesting. But I wonder, as a student on campus, is this something that you think about, that your classmates think about?
Honestly, no. I know that this is such a big issue going on. Not being personally affected by anyone around me that's had something, say, as the measles. I know it is spreading around the Bay Area and California. But being that it's not something that has really affected, especially San Jose State, it's not something that we necessarily talk about, but it's something that we all know about. And I think that's why this is such an important topic, that even though it's not always something that may be affecting you right now today and happening right around you, that it's still important to know some of these facts, and that's why I'm excited to continue to learn.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I'd like to add that at our health center, we've actually expanded our immunization hours. So anticipating that maybe people might want to come in and get vaccinated who haven't been vaccinated, or check a titer if they only had one of the 2 vaccines. We haven't really seen any business of students interested in the measles. And I also wanted to comment on your discussion, which was great. Despite the landmark study being discredited, it's hard to disprove it doesn't. And so just because it doesn't prove there is a causation, doesn't mean it doesn't. And I'll admit it, I'm a People magazine fan, and I read very frequently about a couple who had, celebrity couple, because that's why they're People, who had a completely normal child until they got the vaccine, then they got a fever, fussy, and then never the same. And people see that, and that's scary, because and I'm not an autism expert, I'm an internist, but I think there's still stuff out there that people are scared of. But what they need to really remember is, of the cases that are claimed to be due to it, is very small compared to the risk of getting measles. And it's the cause of the greater community, I don't think is talked about enough. You have immunocompromised people. It's a live vaccine, so people who have not good immune systems can get this, and so through no fault of their own. And so I think there is a sense of doing the right thing.
Sure, and the child is at the core of all of this, and I think that's what makes parents concerned. I certainly think teachers worry about how their students are going to react. Talk to me a little bit about the child. The child feels ouch, and they wonder, why are you doing this to me? And then I think sometimes parents might feel guilty about that ouch because they have these uncertainties.
Sure. I mean, when he gets his shots, he screams for 30 seconds, and then 5 seconds later, he's completely fine. So in the long run, I know I'm doing the right thing for him because he's protected. He's protected from something that can kill him in the long run. So I feel like I'm doing my job as a parent to protect him, and the ouch goes away, and my parents did that for me, so I feel like I'm doing my job as a mom to protect him. So,
well, let me ask you this. If I agree with you, I think Dustin's parents apparently agrees with you, but what about the viewers out there that have different perspectives and say, well, that's good for you, I don't want to do it, and I don't want any government agency or any scientist or any nurse or any doctor telling me what I think is best for my child. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's hard to respond because it's not the law that you have to be vaccinated. And so the problem as I see it is you don't want to protect your child, and you don't, but you want the school and every place else to protect you. I think if you choose not to protect your child and others who have not been able to get the vaccine for various reasons, then the onus is on you, not the school. That's ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. And so if they want to homeschool their children, but I have to say, I think most parents who choose not to vaccinate their children, it's not an easy decision. It's not something that they're just being irresponsible and, hippie. I don't think anybody uses that term anymore besides us, perhaps. But I think there is a lot of thought and discussion that goes into it. And I think the other thing is, compared to other countries, the amount of vaccines you get when you're really young is huge. Right. And, do they really need to have all of these in such a short period of time? And so I think some of the parents struggle with that as well. It's not just the vaccine, but I think there's like 25 in the first year or two. I mean, it's just staggering.
It's staggering and it's scary. Let's be fair to all parents. It's not easy to be a parent. And if you're a first-time parent and you hear all these news stories, I'm sure people are thinking, well, who do we believe? Which way should I go? I don't want to make a mistake.
I think it's fair that parents really need to do the research, and obviously we can't expect parents to do research in a way that a medical professional would be able to access research and medical journals and research articles and such. And I'm a parent that I don't just go to my doctor and say, oh, well, my doctor said so. Okay, well, then that's...
It's not gospel.
No, no, I do multiple research.
Sorry about that, doctor.
I'm getting used to it.
And my doctor's okay with that. I offer my opinions and what logically I feel, but ultimately I think that parents have to talk to multiple different people, multiple different physicians. But physicians, I know that from our physicians, they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of education, they have a lot of training, and they have seen a lot of things that we can't possibly lay out on the table and understand. For example, even just the concentrations of things in drugs, or even how drugs are formulated. We don't understand that. What we see is, what do they publish in People magazine? And that is not a valid form of research. You can't say what a celebrity couple, their child got a fever. I mean, do we know? Statistics are very flawed and very skewed, and we don't know the full statistical background of what happened with that child. What is the genetic background? What is the medical history of that child? In order to determine, you can't determine one way or another whether their autism would have been caused. Also, parents need to look at what are the numbers of autism anyway.
And I think teachers probably go to the classroom with the little tots. They hear the parents being nervous, and they see people possibly on TV talking about it. What does it do to that environment for the young person, the very young person?
Well,
does that make them scared?
You don't really hear the children talking a lot about being ill. That's the last thing they're worried about usually. Even when they are ill, half the time you don't even know they're sick until you send them home with a fever. But I think it's really important, you were talking about earlier about the social media. Social media is quick to say one story, but not to refute it. I personally had never heard that he was disbarred and that he was discredited. I knew he was discredited, but I didn't know to what extent. That part doesn't get out there. I think more education needs to be done to inform parents, and parents come to me and they'll ask me as a teacher, what do you think about this? I just want them to be more informed. Just hear all sides of it before you make your decision. Many parents aren't even aware. I just spoke to a parent last week that was unaware that teachers don't have to be vaccinated. It's our choice, just like it is a parent's choice. And they're unaware that they just learned 4% of their school is not being vaccinated. Again, it's just the lack of knowledge that's out there and the education. I think we need to be doing more promoting of maybe public, spots on commercials, TV, social media, anything we can to get the message out there of just all points of view so that they can make an informed decision.
I think your point is well taken. You're the future of journalism. You're the future, and you and your classmates who do this show, you have to get the message out through social media. You know it better than I do. How do you get that message out to everybody?
Well, I think it starts with things like today, episodes of Equal Time, things that this is what we're able to do is to project this message, and that's why I wanted to bring this topic today, because it wasn't so much about a debate one way or another, who's right, who's wrong, but it's just about the information like she talked about, just bringing that message out there. And I think that's with a lot of cases and different issues that we have going on in our country, is that it starts with the journalism and it begins and it continues to go throughout the people, and we need to make sure we educate people on both sides of the equation, and talk to the specific worries and problems and concerns that are out there, and to further this issue and to bring it to light and hopefully get more people on the same page.
My biggest fear, though, is that young people on social media don't really think about vaccinations. They don't talk a lot about vaccinations, but when they go on in life, get married, have a family, then it becomes absolutely on the front of the table for research and discussion. They jump on the internet, they go call you and say, I found this on the internet, I don't want you giving me that injection. Is that somewhat of what parents, young parents face when social media has not been approached until now that I need it, and I tell the doctor I did some research and you don't need to do that. Does that come into your mind when you're thinking about it as a parent?
Sometimes. I mean, I don't know, I guess I was raised without social media. So until now, social media wasn't part of it. So I always knew I was going to vaccinate my child. So I never really thought of it until social media wasn't a part of my thinking. It wasn't a realm of my thought process.
Well, one of the best things that we tell journalism students everywhere, but especially at San Jose State, get the facts from the experts. But remember, people have the right of choice. Mm-hmm. You have the right of choice on how to tell the story. You have the right of choice of telling them the information. You have the right of choice in a variety of approaches. And I have the right of choice of saying we're running out of time. But I want to thank you. I think this is the conversation we need to have to bring down the fear level. We thank you for joining us, and we hope you come back for another edition of Equal Time.